I want to thank Gaia, first of all, for being willing to chair this committee for us, because this is huge. This is groundbreaking for our district, and we have nowhere to go but up. So it's the very beginning of what is to become, and I know this is really important to David as well for the years that follow, and he's going to continue this focus. So and I'm going to turn it over to Gaia. And
by way of an intro, some of you may know that Rotary adopted a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. I think Tiffany was this the past year, I think, to send a strong message that basically says that Rotary needs to embrace not only more diversity, but also more inclusivity. And so the conversation at the district level started, well, for me, it started when I went to the district conference. You know, we were all together in a big group, and I just felt like it was a particularly good time to start talking more about inclusivity and about raising awareness, really with a dual intention, right? The first half of it being that if we can reach a broader range of people and bring them into the Rotary fold, into the Rotary family, you know, we have then better representation of the communities that we serve and really society at large, which can only be a positive thing. And then secondly, from a practical standpoint, the understanding that we will not thrive as an organization going forward if we exclude entire demographics or make it difficult for them to be engaged in Rotary, whether, you know, by intentionally discouraging certain people or just by default due to apathy and lack of proactive attitude. So, you know, again, this is an attempt to better serve the communities that that are around us. So the purpose of this meeting, by and large, is, in my mind, an opportunity to lay out the scope and framework for this committee and decide what we want to be, you know, to formulate a plan and basically what we want to see at the district level and how we want to help the clubs within the district to be more proactively inclusive and, you know, to give them tools and specific resources to promote diversity in their clubs and equity, and to make sure that their clubs are not just diverse, which obviously means that they have people from different demographics, different ethnic backgrounds, different that the genders are represented and that gender identity is not an issue, but that those people are also included. You know, it's one thing to be diverse and it's another thing to be included. And inclusivity, in my mind, in the context of Rotary, has a lot to do with making sure that those people play vital roles in the club, that they're not just there, but that they're given leadership opportunities, that they're solicited for volunteering, and that they really feel like they're part of something. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. This feels very exploratory to me and exciting. And, you know, ultimately, I think that we can strengthen our district by being more diverse. And this committee has a big role to play that I'm hoping all of you can help shape in your own ways. So maybe where we'll start is, it might be helpful to know what everyone's interest is and what caused you to sign up for this Zoom meeting tonight. And Tiffany, I don't know how best to go around and sort of gauge where people are coming from, but I think it would be helpful if everyone can introduce themselves and in a sentence or two, tell us why they're here.
Sure. You know? And I'll be happy to start and say that this is important to me. And as all of you have heard now in my official visit, it's more than just the color of our skin or our sexual identity. It's so much more than, or our religious preference. It's also the opportunity for us to be diverse in our vocations, in our service projects. And I think that that's the bigger picture that we have to get past. It's not about the color of our skin or our gender. I mean, it is, but it's so much more than that as
Right.
well. So, and growing up as a preacher's kid, you know, my daddy is a retired Methodist minister, and I was sitting in that room in Greenville, South Carolina, in our district conference in April, when someone got up and did the blessing before the meal and said, "In Jesus' name we pray." And I remember me, little preacher's kid, cringing, thinking we're being so exclusive of some of the folks in this room right now. And at that very moment, I looked at the people at my table and went, you know, and I knew then that we had to do something. And I was really excited because Rotary was releasing this new statement, it's more than a statement. It's a goal, really. It's of an environment that we want to create. And what I've learned in my travels all over the world is that it's not like this everywhere. And we have an opportunity to be a leader here in our district and in our part of the country and our part of the world to really say that we're going to do the right thing. And I don't know what will be accomplished this year, but I'm really grateful that David has agreed to make this a priority in the years to come as well. And I think that Tammy and Ken are on board with us as well. I'm sorry they're not here tonight, but I'm really grateful that when I've started the conversation this year, and I've been amazed at the number of people who have come up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you for starting the conversation. I don't know what we can do, but by putting a group together like all of you, I know we can do something." So I will leave that at my segment, and whoever wants to go next.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And as you know, after that invocation at district conference, I got up and left the conference. I drove all the way to Greenville from Asheville, and I just couldn't get past it. You know, as a Jew in that room, I mean, despite me being past president of a club and despite considering Rotary a family, I just couldn't get past it. And I just got up and drove home. And so to your point, yes, definitely room for improvement. But like you said, we can only go up from here. Who ends with 6007?
That's Bob Reinhardt. I am a native of Akron, Ohio, and transplant to the South. And I've lived in 15 states and have worked around the country doing turnarounds of manufacturing operations for different companies, the largest being I had a $30 million division of Tootle International, and had occasion to deal with folks from Holland and Australia and Africa, and am really blessed by the souls I've gotten to come in contact with, and have seen, our little club only has 23, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people, but we claim to be the most diverse club in the district. We've had as many as 15 countries in our club.
Wow.
And I've attended the International Club in Orlando, and we're more diverse than they are, and we enjoy it, and we get along. And our claim to fame right now is our last, I'm going to get this screwed up, 3 or 4 inductees have all been ladies, and they've done a lot to revitalize the attitudes of the guys around me, and I'm happy with that, and tickled to death. And we're going to grow on that, and I think that anything we can do to contribute to that for the district is just a plus.
Whose phone number ends with 4966?
That would be me, O'Neill Sheldon. Basically, I just dropped in to see what was going on in that.
Fair enough.
And the whole diversity issue, I don't think Madison County in general doesn't have any issues with diversity or inclusion. We just can't find enough members. But we're constantly searching. It doesn't matter the background of the person. We have actually drifted to where if anybody's being shut out, it's the local people, and that's because they don't want to get involved. So.
Oh, David, here I am.
Yep.
So this is a very important issue. It's important, you know, Guy, I'm sorry that happened. I knew that was happening. I knew that was happening more often than we care about or seem to care about, and we care to admit. And actually, I have a very close friend who is Jewish, and I invited him to Rotary, and he declined, and not because he didn't want to be a Rotarian, but because he didn't feel welcome. And he made it really clear to me that as far as what his perception of Rotary was that it was a Christian-dominated group, and that they weren't welcoming to him. So that was his feeling. I didn't know how to deal with that other than to say, I'm sorry. And I really wish you would come and help me make a change. But anyway, I am glad you're here, Gaia. And I'm glad that we're talking about this issue in the year to come. Well, as soon as pre-pets, which will be in February, we'll be presenting the diversity, equity, and inclusion statement and urging the president-elects to adopt that statement into their constitution and bylaws. And you know, it's another step to bring awareness. I know that in 2015-16, past District Governor Billy Black urged the clubs to, you know, make the prayers and invocations less secular, and I think that had some gusto at the beginning, but we've kind of lost that. And I know in our zone events and things like that, we have non-secular invocations, and I like that. I think that's the way we should be, because it's not the place of Rotary to be a political organization. It's not the place of Rotary to be a religious organization or an organization of any kind of exclusion of LGBT, any of that. Rotary has no voice in that other than to say we welcome you and we want you to be part of our service, and if you have a heart for service, we want you to join us. So that's my spiel. I will say that one thing that I read in Rotarian magazine today, and I shared this with District Governor Tiffany, I noted that there was a little sidebar or a little pop out there in one of the pages, and it said that there's a new fellowship for LGBT, and it's a Rotary endorsed fellowship, Rotary fellowship. And I thought, what an amazing step to see that in our Rotarian magazine. So I guess that is to say that there's wind in the sails. I think we're going the right direction, and I'm really excited about this committee. So this is great. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Cam.
Yes, hello.
Hi. Hello.
If I could figure out how to turn my camera on my computer.
On the lower left corner, do you have a little icon that says start video?
I do, and every time I punch it, it comes up saying cannot start video, failed to start the video camera, please select another video camera in setting. And it's the only one I have.
Yeah,
okay.
that would be.
Yeah, okay. I am, just to lay it out, I'm a gay man. My husband and I have been together for 31 years. He said, be sure and tell them they also need to include people that are going through problems with mental health. So I've done my duty to him there.
Okay.
And also, I, back in 2014, was one of the founding members in California for a new club there that was just totally full of, and I know we're not supposed to be political or whatever, but we had a whole lot of Catholic, Republican, ex-military people. And by the end of the 10 years that I was a member of that club, it was wonderful, the reaction they had. I was actually president of the club the 10th year before we ended up having to move to Texas because of work. And just, it was wonderful being able to be an out and open, because I've always been out and open at work. And I was, when I first went to Rotary meetings, it was because an attorney that I was a vendor for at that time invited me to come. I went to a couple of meetings. I really liked what I saw. I liked the service above self, all of that. And he ultimately asked me, would you like to join? And I said, yes, but I said, you know, from talking with me, from the way I live my life, that I'm an out and open gay man. And I don't want that to be any kind of a problem. And he reached in his pocket, pulled out his wallet, pulled out the card. And I always break down and cry when I tell this.
Yeah.
And said, this is the 4-way test. And number 1 is it the truth? And that was it. That was it. I was very involved from that point on. To add a little humor here, my club in California had a whole lot of social events outside the regular club events. And all of the presidents and their either significant others or spouses always ended up with a nickname of some kind. And about 5 years after we joined at one of these social events, my husband was sitting with a bunch of the female spouses of some of the people in the club. And they were saying, okay, when Cam becomes president of the Rotary Club of San Ramon Valley, what do you want your nickname to be? And my husband, being the person he is, of course, immediately said, oh, just have him call me the first queen. So
nice.
Oh, from that point on, that was his nickname. And he literally at some of the district events in places like Redding and Red Bluff and Weed in California, which is in the Inland Valley, very, very conservative areas, was introduced as my spouse, the first queen. So, and on top of that, we at our various and sundry companies we've worked at helped to form Pride resource groups at both Chevron Corporation, the original Bank of America, and helped to revitalize the ones at EDS, believe it or not, when we went there, and then ultimately became part of the HP Pride organization. So that's why I'm here. I've been invested in this for a long time. I believe it really fits with what Rotary is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing that. I just felt your sincerity come through the line, and I so appreciate you opening up to the group that way. Thank you, Cam, really. Ryan, you there?
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Hey, there you are.
Hi.
How are
hello,
you?
guys. Good, how are y'all? I'm happy to be here.
Good. What's up?
So like
Yeah.
Tiffany said, I've been involved in Rotary since high school. So I was in Interact Club and was part of their officer team, and then became the vice president of our Rotaract Club up in Boone. So it was Rotaract Club of Boone. And I knew I wanted to be a part of Rotary when I graduated college, like after Rotaract. And being gay myself, you know, I did not see any representation whatsoever whenever I attended Rotary events outside of Rotaract events. So I wrote some notes here and see where I wanted to start. I think one of the big things I noticed is whenever I had the opportunity to attend a Rotaract conference in Charlotte, and I noticed that whenever I was around all these other college-age kids or people around my age, they were extremely diverse. I mean, at least half of the people in the room were of color. There were women that were, most of the clubs represented were club presidents were women, and which same goes for my club. I think I was the only male in my club for a couple of years.
Really?
But you know, which was a lot of fun too. So that was kind of my my goal as a new member coordinator or whatever, is to recruit more guys and, you know, more people.
You don't hear that in Rotary very often. Recruit more guys.
Exactly. And so, but that made me notice is, where's the drop off? Like, how many people that were really heavily involved in Rotaract, where do they go when they become Rotary age? They don't go into Rotary. And that's just honestly the fact. And when you look at the clubs across the country, these clubs are literally dying out. Like, you have these older clubs that are, you know, are men in their late 80s that, you know, they're sign checks and then they're gone.
Right.
So I think if we're going to appeal to this younger you know, generation to be able to keep our club, our, you know, organization, our organization's longevity, you know, we're going to have to appeal to the diverse crowds. I mean, I went to a training at AB Tech for Rotary, and on the front of the handbook for Rotaract is a young white woman, a young white man, and a really old white guy. And so, like, what does that tell young people? Like, why would I want to be a part of this organization when I don't see myself represented whatsoever in this organization? And just like Tiffany said, when you get a very diverse population of people in a room, and you start fielding the question of, you know, what kind of projects do we want to do as a group? If you have all the same individuals in the room, you're going to get all the same projects, and you're not going to reach the far reaches of, you know, all the places that we are. I mean, the Rotary is in some really rural parts. I know someone from Madison County's on here. I mean, there's people in very urban areas too, and there's a whole group of people that we're completely missing out on serving, and that's what we're all here is service. If we don't have any of those people represented. So I think there's a difference between diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is more or less faces on a page, if you can imagine. Inclusion is really making those people's voices feel heard, and equity is making sure that everyone is equal, regardless of any of their backgrounds. So really framing that in our clubs. So, you know, my club, my Rotaract club was very, you know, it's all women pretty much. But I also had an idea. I had the opportunity working at MAHEC as a nonprofit organization, and I'm a recruiter in human resources, so I have a lot of opportunity to be able to, you know, help support LGBT individuals at my job, as well as patients and employees alike. And I was invited to do a panel discussion for the YMCA. And at that discussion, there was like a 4-part series where every individual that worked for the organization had to take part. And there was the first 3 parts were, you know, education based, and the 4th part was a panel discussion. And so I was able to share my story. So we're, you know, 4 other LGBT people next to me. I got to do on 2 different panels with 2 different groups of people. And it was really awesome to see people in our community that work at the YMCA, you know, see LGBT people as, you know, just like them, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Like my boyfriend's an accountant. We live in Asheville. We're not very fabulous. Like we're pretty just normal people. And I think
you are very fabulous.
You
Don't
please.
even
Very
try
fabulous.
that.
Yeah, I beg to differ
Fabulous.
too.
So I mean, we're you know, we're just kind of normal people, and I think having some kind of event like that, which I would be more than happy to talk to our district, but something in front of our district saying, you know, this is a real thing that we want to be moving towards, and if we don't, we will fail as an organization. Like the organization will literally not go forward. Like there won't be any people.
Yeah.
So that's just reason why I'm here, and anything I can help with it, as you know, are being the youngest and probably Rotary clubs.
It's so awesome that you're with us though, because you know, diversity starts at home, and if we're not diverse in this committee, we're not going to go very far. So thank you for taking the time.
Of course.
Really. Are you still here? There you are. Hi.
Is that me?
That's you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic.
Awesome.
I am
Thanks for
from the
being here.
University Rotary Club, and it's one of those things where we have no African American people in our club, and I would love to add to that. We do have LGBTQ members of our club, but they are too afraid to be who they are, so they kind of hide behind just being straight people. So I'd love to see that changed.
Absolutely. I witnessed it just this morning at my club. You know, it was a Lord Jesus moment, and it's just, you know, that the part that I have to bring compassion to is that when you ask someone to do an invocation, they're going to default to what they know, and what they know usually draws them back to their church context, right? And how it's done in their church. So part of me just takes a deep breath, and you know, the next part of me starts to think about, all right, is this a situation where the invocation should rotate and where it should be something different every week, or do we just get rid of it? Because I know of many clubs, or an increasing number of clubs, who decided the invocation was just no good, and they couldn't make it equitable, and they couldn't make it diverse enough, so they just got rid of it entirely. So maybe that's where.
And my club is a perfect example of that. We
Is it
have
really?
gone to that now. We just do a moment of silence for you to think positive thoughts for those who may need it, or whatever it is. But of course, we don't have a meal also, so that makes it a little bit easier at my club.
So what I was thinking is that the first aspect of this is to raise awareness, because none of this behavior is in itself wicked or intentionally exclusive. A lot of it is, you know, autopilot and resting on years and years of doing things a certain way. So my sense is that we can, there needs to be an awareness campaign, and from a practical standpoint, who are the people in the club that could help us spearhead this? And I'm thinking the logical person, aside from the direct leadership, the presidents of the club, is the membership chairperson in every club. You know, they're the ones who are in charge of spearheading their efforts to recruit new members and find new members and lure new members. And if they don't have this on their radar in any way, they're just going to keep doing more of the same. So perhaps the first step, y'all let me know what you think about this, but would be to have some sort of communication with the membership chairs.
I am very
Ryan.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
Oh, go ahead, Tim. Oh, if you had something.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm very encouraged that we have a lot of younger folks that are very open-minded, and that they are pretty much setting an example for all the older members to kind of transition their thought process.
Yes, and my thought that I forgot to mention, you know, Gaia, that reminded me, when we're thinking about equity and fairness for all, it's not just, you know, your qualities of what, you know, you are or what you look like. I mean, there's a whole group of people that are poor that cannot afford dues of Rotary. So why would they want to spend that much money to be a member when they need to buy clothes for their kids or whatever? I mean, so we have this new model, which I love, this passport model. It's wonderful, where, you know, it's $15 a month, and that's something that I, as a new college graduate, who's entry level in the workforce, that I can afford. I mean, even with if I didn't have my boyfriend, you know, as an accountant, you know, I probably wouldn't be living out by myself. So these young people, of course, are not going to want to join when they see that number, and that's also excluding a huge group of people that even adults that would be in the groups of people that we'd be serving, that would have great ideas for projects and things. So that was, you know, another.
Yeah, sure. What do you think, Ryan, of the idea of, we floated this in our club, of having some graduated scale down dues? If the intention is to, for instance, bring in a younger demographic, would be to have reduced dues for people under 30, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea for under 30. I think it's kind of hard to create like a sliding scale sometimes with people. I just think of, you know, if you were, I think it's a great idea for, you know, people under 30 having reduced dues, but when you look at, you're recruiting a new member and you're really excited about Rotary and you're telling them about Rotary, they're like, you know, why should I have to pay money to the Rotary Foundation? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what, you know, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Of course we should be doing that. That's, you know, what we're charged to do. But I'm saying, when you're trying to tell someone who knows nothing about Rotary, how do you help them understand the importance of where these dues are going? And I understand there's like a purpose for the reason why we have these dues. I mean, some clubs have, you know, lunches or dinners or breakfast or whatever. So that's obviously a part. You know, providing a way for people to join your club that don't have to come in and eat the lunch or eat the dinner and don't have to pay for that kind of thing. So, you know, finding ways that where we're fiscally responsible, you know, with what exactly people are signing up for.
We might add, when we talk about those things like cost, and Gaia, I love the idea of some sort of sliding scale, but then we also have to get folks to look internally at their club and say, but would a 30-year-old or a 24-year-old like him want to join some of these clubs that are so steeped in tradition, that ring the bell, start on time, you know, have a formal program and all of those things? I think in Ryan's case, and I don't mean to speak for him, but I think I know him well enough to know that that's kind of what the Passport Club, why it appeals to him, is it's so non-traditional. So we also have to recognize that some folks are not going to fit into the traditional club model.
Definitely.
And it's one of the things I tell people when I'm speaking is that, you know, when I talk about diversity, I really mean everything, not just all those other things that we've talked about already, but also our vocations, our service projects. And I say, I'm never going to be that person that can write a big check to the Rotary Foundation, but I give my $30 a quarter because it's the right thing to do. But what I can do is go plan a fundraiser, do some social media, give a public, you know, give a speech or whatever. And we all have something different to offer. And I think that if we keep reminding folks of that, that's what it means to be diverse, is that we all have something different to offer. And for me, I'm not going to be able to write that big check. But on the other hand, the other thing I say to people, when, you know, is that it also comes down to our vocations, you know, that I say, you don't have to be a hospital CEO or a banker or a lawyer to join Rotary. I own an eBay store, and people always laugh when I say that. And I go, I'm not kidding. You know, it just goes to prove that you don't have to be one of those things to be in leadership in Rotary either. Under the age of 50, single, white, female, who figures out a way to pay her mortgage every month. But I also find time to donate, to give back to this organization I believe in. And then it gets to our service projects. Just like Guy said earlier, if we're all the same people in the room, we're probably always donating to the same organization. And what I see from the perspective of having visited with all of our clubs is we're either giving to those organizations of the boards that we serve on already, or we feel sorry for that poor little African-American school over in the corner of our county that doesn't have anything, and we're going to always give to them. And that is not being equitable or inclusive either. And so those are the conversations I'm so grateful that we're having. And I know when I met with Gaia a month or so ago, she had some really great activities and things that she wanted to share. And then we're looking for your input as well. I love hearing all of your ideas and your input. And then the question of where do we go next and how do we continue to get this message out? And I know Guy had a couple of ideas, and I'm sure some of you do as well. So I'll wrap up my blah 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 and go back to you.
Tiffany?
Yeah.
Guy had the suggestion of utilizing the membership chair to spearhead this kind of activity. I think we could, and we are in our club going to have a diversity chair, and I think Steve's going to have that diversity responsibility if he'll let me twist his arm any harder. But and only because of time. He's a committed person, and he won't give half-heartedly. But I think as far as the laddered due structures, we found that the young people that we've been able to engage, like one of our big activities is Rise Against Hunger, because we pull in 15 or 20 13 to 21-year-olds to help package and present. And I think the diversity chair could also serve as a mechanism for a laddered structure for a less than full pay membership. And as you know, we use our e-chair with the videos. And I guess I'm not telling tales out of school. We have probably 4 or 5 people that I carry on the email list for that video that are not full-blown club members, and we have a number that have been in and out and have other full-time charitable activities like the soup kitchen, and we have, like today, they went to work with the developmentally challenged to help with the Classroom Connections tools distribution for students in need. I think we're finding, and will find, that we can engage a lot of the young people by giving them meaningful tasks to engage in and perform. And in that regard, by the way, for those of you who may be able to remember, Gary Dills had a youth conference as part of his district conference here in Hickory a few years back. And for that, we wrote a number of invocation texts that involve both, because like when I do for Classroom Connections, I do Shekienu in Hebrew. But we have a number of invocation models available to us that cover 4 or 5 different theological points of view all at once. And I think we could share that and make that available for anybody who wants a non-limiting invocation type format.
Well, Bob, that would be really helpful, because if you actually Google non-denominational Rotary invocations, not a whole lot comes up, and it's always the same 3 or 4 entries that come up. And I think that might be a good first step, you know, to give the clubs examples of what something like that might sound like, because it's going to feel unnatural at first, or unfamiliar, you know, to people who are used to doing things a certain way. So I would love to see that personally.
Yeah, I have those that Bob sent me. I can forward those to the whole group, and I have the ones that we wrote for our foundation banquet, which we did in 5 or 6 different languages as well, which was part of our diversity that evening. So I'll be happy to send that to the group. I think David Wachter has his hand raised. So he may have
that's the first time I've ever raised my hand.
I know, that was cool though. I saw it.
How did you do that? I didn't see you.
There's these buttons over here on the right-hand side at the bottom, and it says more.
Oh, I see it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I raised my, I never did that before. One of the things, well, one step forward we could do, we'll have a Vibrant Club training in May. And I think I'm right on the date. I think it's May 16th. And I would like to have some best practices that could be presented to the club leadership, spotlight, and not just a handout, but have someone from this committee, maybe it's Gaia, whomever, but we need have not just hand them a piece of paper, but go
Right.
over that with them and explain to them why those best practices are the best. And
Yep.
and just initiate the conversation, and that's a good place to get a pretty good variety of leaders in your clubs, and get you could get a conversation going across the district, and then following that up with club visits and support to the clubs, like Bob Reinhardt's talking about having a diversity chair in his club. Perhaps other chairs will emerge in the clubs, and I think we should promote that and urge that. And this committee can be a touchstone for those diversity chairs and for the presidents and other leaders. So, but I think that might be one step we can take, and I'm sure there are others.
Great, thank you.
So I'm inviting you to the Vibrant Club training in May.
May 16th, I wrote it down.
I think that's the right day, but please
That is.
don't hold me to that.
I checked
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
Where?
And I think Cam has his hand raised now.
Yeah.
This is so
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, I
Good job.
turned on the side of the screen just so I could raise my hand. And I wanted to say, I know that this is not hard to believe, but in the little tiny town of Tryon in western North Carolina, yes, I'm kind of not the norm in my club, but recently we had, because we actually meet at a Presbyterian church, and they just brought in a new pastor, and he was already involved in Rotary.
Oh.
And he shifted over to being a member of the Rotary Club of Tryon. And the other day was the first time he was going to do the invocation, and I was kind of going, waiting.
Yeah.
And because he's probably at the most late or early 40s, maybe even late 30s, I'm not sure. He did a wonderfully non-specific invocation that I was very happy. I've been called on to do it. I did one, and I'm a little feeling strange for bringing this up, but I even have a problem with under God in the pledge allegiance to the flag. That to me is something that was brought in after the fact. And so for some of us that still believe in God, but don't believe we should have to pledge that as part of to the flag.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up. I was very happy with that experience with our new member in the club.
Great. Yeah, he was, that was insightful of him to make it more.
Yeah, obviously he had whatever his prior club affiliations had been, he had experienced that it wasn't appropriate in a Rotary club to be making it all Christian or whatever.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, hi. So I'm just going to jump in here. So the, I think when thinking about retaining or trying to attract those younger members as well, I did a program I developed an emerging leadership program. And I feel like that would be a great way to find, people who are in Rotary, to find a younger individual to sponsor to be part of their club. That could be, a channel that you can open to recruit more members, especially the younger ones for your club. So if you get like an older individual and they find someone in their community and they sponsor them. So whether it's someone who does, make a lot of money, they are those check writers for the club, they can like literally pay their dues, or, pay like a reduced amount or something to ensure that we have more diverse people in the club that are younger. And another thing is I went to a Rotary training at AV Tech, and a young professional was defined as 35 years old. And my 24-year-old self was sitting there, and I'm like, wow, am I supposed to be a part of Rotary? Like, am I allowed to be here? Like, what does that make me? I'm not young for another 10 more years. And and that was shocking to me. And if that's what we're kind of like touting to our district, like, we're definitely not in the mindset of trying to find people to sustain stuff long term. So I mean, I'm thinking of like creative ways to be able to bring in. I'm a recruiter, so I bring in top talent. I'm just kind of in that mode all the time. But if we created some kind of emerging leadership, channel to be able to develop pathways to, even high school students or Rotaractors, or find that Rotaract club in our district, or I know there's not as many as Rotary clubs, of course, but find a Rotaract club that's near you, or even a place like a university is near you that has college-age people, or, in their 20s or something, where they could either be on the cusp of Rotary or Rotaract. Kind of can be in Rotaract up till you're 30. Right. So something like that. I mean, that's just like an idea. But.
Yeah. Thank you. Does anyone else want to jump in and share anything that we haven't shared so far? Anything in the way of ideas, or how to prioritize this, or to help us frame our mandate further? When you say growing membership the right way, this is growing membership the right way. And what's also coming up for me is that historically, presidents of clubs have tended to be on the older side of the spectrum, and maybe are products of what Rotary used to be, yesterday's Rotary, of your grandpa's Rotary. And I can't say I'm surprised, but I also don't put much faith in having them be the standard. I think we just.
I will share this. I found this very interesting. I got an email just tonight while we've been on this call a little while ago from the editor of the Rotarian magazine. He reached out to me because they're going to do a story in April of 2020 about young district governors. So talking about age. And they're apparently this year, under the age of 50 is what they're calling young district governors. Out of 525 governors around the world, do you want to guess how many are under the age of 50?
Oh, gosh.
15.
And I'm one of them. one.
Ryan's ready to keel over. Ryan's just about ready to.
No,
eyes are rolling in the back of his head.
No, I was going to say there's one, and it's Tiffany.
I am 1 out of 36 around the world.
Yep.
That's great. Under 50.
Under 50. Isn't
That's
that
insane.
Incredible?
That's shocking.
I know there are a lot of women this year. I will say that in my governor's class, there were a lot of us that were female at the assembly in January. But they're going to do a survey of the 36 of us and do an article.
Well, how many district governors are there in the world?
525.
Wow.
So less than
525.
I think
So
Rob.
You realize that a lot of the leadership structure in Rotary is geared around people who have retired and have the time to give it. And as part of David's vibrant club training model, we might want to look at something like we use in our club, and that is not all of the stewardship activities of the president are conducted by the president of our club. We have somebody like myself who behaves like a trustee to help mentor and facilitate his role as president, so that those things that have to get done on time a certain way are done by somebody other than the president directly, because that eats a lot of his time up, and a younger person may not have that kind of time to give if they're in class or if they're building a career or a business. It remains for the structure of the club to accommodate them to be able to sit the chair.
Right.
Sorry.
Certainly having a strong leadership around the president to pick up the slack and cover
And around the governor as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. Any other ideas we haven't brought forth yet on what this committee's mandate should be? Anything we should consider?
I just wanted to mention that Gaia has some great ideas, and we can schedule another meeting with this group if that's amenable to everyone. She has some great ideas of an actual program that she could go out and do for clubs, that she could train some other folks to do the same program. Because again, it goes back to, she's not a committee of one. You guys are all on this committee now, and we'd like for it to continue to grow. But we will introduce that in early February at the past President's Council meetings. I'm going to ask Gaia if she will help by writing a small article every month that we can post on our website or on our InductTV or on our social media and things like that. But if you guys see articles that you think are interesting, you want to forward them to her and let her kind of field them all over towards me. We want to share stories. If you see programs that you think we should be sponsoring, or that we should have a membership drive or a pop-up service project there, or I know Ryan and I were talking the other night at his club meeting that we would love to see us be a sponsor one day of the Asheville Pride Festival. You know, perhaps I don't know. Oh, David just put that up. Thank you. I was like, I don't know where that came from.
I am really stretching my Zoom capabilities.
I'm impressed that you knew how to do that. That's impressive. Yeah.
Sorry.
So
that's from the Rotarian magazine.
I would like to thank you all, you know, for, I mean, this is not an easy subject to talk about. And I think a lot of, you know, people in our district, when we present something like this, you know, there could be some eye rolls or some people that are not really, you know, super looking forward to something like this. But, you know, just know that, you know, none of us are experts. We're all learning. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, you know, of course, like listen more than you speak, of course, but about these things. But, you know, don't feel like you have to walk on eggshells to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. This is something that we should be fostering in order to grow our organization. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Well, thanks everybody. I'm going to log off. It looks like my computer is dying. So if I lose you, that's what happened. I can't find a cord.